how many of you know Jeff or have heard him speak or seen him online? Couple people, great. So if you don't know, Jeff and I have a special relationship. He is my coach with Tom Ferry. I've been with him for a couple years now. He's awesome. Has really helped me take my game to another level, especially by using YouTube videos, Instagram. He's just really helped coach me in a lot of ways. He's a former videographer, so he knows a lot when it comes to like techie things about like, well, what gear do I need? What do I, what kind of stuff? And so we're gonna talk more of some of the nerdy techie things, which I is different from what we normally talk. But it's I think it's super valuable because sometimes just buying one little piece of equipment can completely transform the quality of a video, and better quality of videos are more likely to get watched. And we don't have to spend a fortune. So don't think, okay, now I got to go out and spend thousands and thousands of dollars to shoot a video. Like a lot of these things could be something as simple as getting a better microphone, so he's going to help answer all your questions. And I'm going to turn it over to Jeff to get us started.
Awesome. Shannon, thank you for the opportunity. And the feeling is mutual. And it's been so much fun getting to hang. Like she said, and just to give her a little bit of love back, when we started working together, she was already doing some good stuff on Instagram, and I adopted her from another coach. And this is one of the few moments where the coach said, I've taken her as far as I can go. She's doing good things on Instagram. I think she needs more of a social voice. And the funniest part was, and this is something that we'll probably get into a little bit later on, that coach said she needs more support, as in from other humans. And I was like, cool. And we got to working together. And since then, we've watched her go from basically a super solo agent with husband support to having a small team and having a transaction coordinator and having video editing support and that sort of thing. And so it's just always fun to watch friends like Shannon grow. And then now she's here sharing with you guys. So it's certainly an honor to just be able to pass on some of the love to you guys as well. And like she said, I do, as far as background goes with a camera in my hand, I was a studio art major with photography as my emphasis. And I was just old enough to be in a dark room with chemicals, like actually in the dark. Now, a lot of the young folks are like, what's a dark room? Adobe has a platform called Lightroom, which is a spinoff of Darkroom just for digital images. And some of you guys are nodding your heads. So I know you know what I'm talking about. My kids are way better at Lightroom than I am. And I'm also just young enough to have been the first undergraduate at University of Kentucky with a digital SLR camera, which is single lens reflex. And we won't get too carried away with nerdy phrases because I don't think that's helpful. But I was the first ever undergraduate at University of Kentucky with a digital camera in my hand. And the next year, all the freshmen came in with way nicer cameras than I had. And I was like, what is this? And at that time, I got told by the artists in the art department, they're like, oh, digital camera, you're not an artist. I'm like, oh, because this is how artists go. And we get real snobby about like artsy things. And at one point in time, it was, if you're not doing black and white, you're not an artist. I'm like, I like color. I like this world in color. So I'm going to go play in the color dark room, which is a very rare thing that we happen to have and had a lot of fun. So Shannon made some big promises in the Instagram reel that she and I collaborated on. And she said, better gear equals better video. And Jeff is going to cover lighting, audio, camera, tripod, and camera settings. And if I get through all this, what Shannon's like, of course you can. I probably could, and I probably could do it in a very small amount of time. But my goal here is to give you the most practical, helpful thoughts. And I am going to rip through a fair bit of smaller content. I'm going to share just a couple of screens. And then Shannon, I don't know if I shared this with you or not, but I've got a relatively simple gear list that has links that are clickable to the Amazon storefront. I have an Amazon storefront. So if you love what we talked about and any of this stuff is like, I want to go buy that. First off, Facebook Marketplace can be a great place to buy if you don't mind dealing with the drama that goes there. There's one or two pieces of gear that if you like what I talk about, I might say go find it there because you can't find it anywhere else. But there will be clickable links with current, as of yesterday, pricing on there as well. So to dive right in, One of the most important things that I like to share if you're getting started on video or if you're doing some video, especially if you're doing your own video, game changer if you've got somebody who's holding the camera for you or you're hiring a professional. But a lot of folks who are either here, maybe, or at some point in time might watch this in the future are going to say, all right, I might hire a videographer for the listing or the listing video, but for the everyday stuff, I don't have the capacity or the finances yet for that sort of thing. Shannon is an amazing example of all she used for the longest time was this. Shannon, you're still using the iPhone for what, 50, 60, 80% of what you're currently working through?
I use it for everything. I mean, only if I hire my professional videographer, it's for listing videos and neighborhood tours, but every other thing I create is just off my iPhone.
I love that. And so here's the wild thing. I have worked with countless agents and even some other friends outside of the real estate world to help them get set up with and or work through whatever it is that they're trying to make content around. And I've even seen, and I get paid to film people. Um, but oftentimes it's finding the consistency with what you can do, which is why I think this is such a playful and helpful conversation if you take action on the far side of it. So that being said, the iPhone is an amazing tool. I mean, I still own my original iPhone that I bought the day that the iPhone came out because as much as I try not to admit it, I am a tech nerd. And the more I talk about this sort of thing, the more I'm like, oh yeah. I mean, I've literally got a stack of Apple boxes right over there in my office. My wife's like, you ever gonna do anything with those? No, I don't know. It's just what people who buy Apple products do. But so with all that being said, keep it simple as possible. Keep it as simple as possible to get the end result that you're looking for. And for most of us, especially if we're putting content on Instagram or TikTok, and for a lot of us, even if we're putting content on YouTube, an iPhone is all you're ever going to need as far as cameras go. And there are some times where it might make sense to do some other stuff, but a lot of our friends who are creating and winning new opportunities, as in business that's inbound coming to them through Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, most of them who are winning big time are using an iPhone sometimes, if not all the time, in combination with another relatively simple camera. Now, 5 years ago, that might not have been the case, but the tech has come so far. So the very first piece of the puzzle, lighting is super important. Okay. And I am on a professional rig right here. So this is a expensive camera, a very expensive lens. I've got a light here. I've got windows on either side. And then I've got some other lighting behind me. I'm going to show you a couple playful things that I think will help the example, but just by changing the lighting. Now there's a lot of light in here because it's daytime, but if it were night, you guys see the difference? It doesn't look bad, but it's definitely not the same. And so this light right here, that is the only light that I have right in front of me, is what we call a key light. I'm going to share a screen and I'm going to explain to you what this means. And we're going to do a pretty quick version of this, but here's the shared screen. The key light is basically, there's camera, there's me, and there's my key light. Simply just one light, okay? Then if we, let me go the right direction. The fill light, or in my particular setup right now, my fill light is a window that's not like direct light pushing on me, but there's plenty of light coming in on the left-hand side of my face. So that's the fill light. And then also, and I'm going to show you an example of this, the backlight. Now, all you need is the key light. But if all you had was the key light, and if I had a way to shut, I don't have shades on my office window, but if I had shades on my office window, I would draw that shut and you would see how much in shadow my face becomes. Okay. But you add in that fill light, it gives some color to the other side of or some lighting to the other side of your face. And then finally you add in the backlight, which I'm going to show you here in just a second. As you add in the backlight, I would lose what we call, this is actually a little bit of a different backlight. This is a hair light. So I can reach up here and I can shut that light off. Now there's enough light in here currently, but there, like later, if I'm on an evening call or Zoom or webinar, my hair starts to disappear into my background. Okay. So when I put that light back on, again, it gives you just enough so that you see what's going on. Like it gives that little bit of a separation there. Does that make sense? Any questions so far with lighting? I'll probably like hit a little pause in between each of the categories. As far as which lights, first off, if you're doing mostly handheld with an iPhone, being near a window where the window is probably on catty corner to the side of your face, like that key light, is probably all you need. And then holding your phone or having your phone on a tripod should do the trick and do the work that you need to have happen there. Okay. If you want to get more lights, there's a number of them. Amazon sells ring lights. My favorite light is newer. I will always say that word wrong, but they come. Yep, I have almost everything right next to me. But they come and they're a panel, and then there's a soft box. So this goes right on top, and the clickable link for the two newer lights, it's about $240. They come with stands, plugs, the light themselves, and the soft boxes. And what the soft box does is it keeps it from being too harsh right in your face. So I'm a big fan of those lights. They're also something that you can travel with. So if you're doing content in model homes, that sort of thing, you can pack them up. Sometimes they come in pretty good carrying cases. Plug them in, turn them on, and you are ready to go, even just with an iPhone. Okay. So I think that those are pretty great. And okay, so I've gone through all that. Any questions about lighting before we move on? I'm going to assume silence is no questions, and I'm going to keep rolling. But again, iPhone, window to start is probably all you need. Now, the next, and they're probably equally as important, but audio and lighting, in my opinion, are two of the most important things. If you have good visual, but your audio is terrible, people will get annoyed and tune you out quickly. If you have good audio, but terrible lighting or terrible imagery, they'll probably pay attention a little bit longer if they like the hook or the energy that you brought them. We're not going to go deep on that. But in my opinion, I am on my third set of the DJI mics. So I currently have two because we gave one to my wife, but these are what they look like. And I had the original version, the DJI DJI mic original, and then this one is the DJI mic 2, and this comes with what they call the lavalier, which is about the size of 2/4 as far as top to bottom, and hopefully this image is kind of letting you know. And then it plugs into this. I'm sorry, this plugs into your iPhone or just about any other camera, and then it allows you to work through your audio that way. And the nice thing about this is it can clip on, as you can see right there, clips on, or you can use a magnet, or you might even be able to see it on the side here. I've got a couple other cameras over here that are doing some filming here, and one of them is actually attached to one of the cameras. We'll get to that here in a little bit. So that being said, this particular one, the big one, the second generation, is about $250. I don't think this is necessary anymore. In fact, I had just bought this, and then they announced the DJI Mini, Mic Mini. And this one, and if you're wondering why there's nothing in here, it's because I'm using the other part. But it comes with two mics plus the receiver. The receiver looks like the other one, it's just half the size. And this is the microphone. It is tiny. It is about the size of a quarter and like 3 or 4 quarters stacked up. This also has noise cancellation. I have the other one right here. So I have two because one's going to that camera and one's going to this camera as I film. And this is so light and so easy, and you can just stick it on almost anything. Like if I'm doing a talk or I'm filming myself, it's just right there. You can put it up on collar of your shirt, that sort of thing. Some of you guys, I'm sure, already have these or some other ones. In the list that I have from Amazon, I have a couple others that are much less expensive. The minis, instead of being 350 like the regular ones, the minis are like $160 or $170. So far more reasonable. It is more expensive. There are some that I've seen as low as $30 to $60. I have not personally had any experience with the two inexpensive ones that I have on my Amazon gear list. Some guys who I follow, pay attention to, they were doing some stuff around Black Friday and said these are the best value ones. But if we're doing a lot of this sort of content with the intent of putting out higher quality content, in my opinion, it just makes sense to go with the DJI. For me personally, as we get into some of the other camera options, it made even more sense because they directly sync up. Oh, one other thing that I want to mention, as you go through this, it got to actually pull it apart and put it together. When I said it syncs right to your iPhone, there is, whether you have the newer or the older iPhone, there are attachments that go right to the bottom of this and it plugs right into the bottom. So when I say it is super, super simple, my wife does not like techie things and she's managing a fitness facility and they're starting to include some more video in their content. She's on an iPhone and she's got the old generation of this, which you can oftentimes get the old generation for about $150 on Facebook Marketplace. And they're putting out really good quality stuff that's really simple. She mics up the coaches, and it's actually hilarious because they've got a couple coaches that say ridiculous things, and they're in loud noise, weightlifting happening, music bumping, and you can still hear what the coach is saying. So that's why I think there's so much value in having that sort of microphone. Okay. If you're, I don't have this in the link. I could probably add it, but there are a couple different microphones that get used here. If you want it on your desk or if you're doing your editing on your computer as opposed to on your iPhone. But most of the folks who I'm working with, if they're doing their own edits, they're doing their edits on their iPhone or their iPad. So you're probably better off just with the DJI. This is a touch more high quality, but the difference is so small that I probably, if I were doing what Shannon's talking about, most of you guys doing, I probably would not spend the extra money on a boom mic like this. I would probably stick to the DJI gear. So any questions on the microphones so far? I'm going to assume that no questions is we're all good. And here's what I would say. We're not done with the conversation, but we could be. Quite literally, everything we just talked about right now is all that almost everybody I work with has ever needed. Unless they get to the point where they really start to paying for, professional support. And you can crank a lot of content that way. So let's move on to cameras. Like Shannon said, I've done a fair bit of professional stuff. I've got a number of these. You probably don't need this, but I will talk about, if you really want to get to that place, what I would suggest based on what you're doing. That being said, I love DJI's current product line. This is the DJI Pocket or Action 5. They have Action 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I personally would not go below the 4, but the 4 would be fine. There's just enough upside to buying the 5 that I thought, hey, we're going to go with that. I am going to pull up the link, so I'm telling you accurate prices just because I think it's a little bit relevant. So the Action 4, just for the camera without any accessories, is about $220. If you get the combo, which includes a couple of extra batteries, it's $330. Okay, for the 4. If you go to the 5, it's just a better quality. And to me, this probably will not get replaced when the 6 comes out because it's so good in my opinion. So I would personally just jump to this. This by itself is $350. And if you buy the combo, which includes a selfie stick, an attachment that goes around this, and 3 batteries, which in my opinion, if I know I'm going to be using it a fair bit, probably makes sense, it's $450. I have used this more than almost any other camera I've used in a long time, and I absolutely love it. The cool thing is you do not need anything besides the actual clip-on mic. So I can record full podcast episodes just with these 2. And if I'm interviewing somebody else, there's 2 of these that come in the pack. So I can do myself and one other person with this and get 4K quality everything that I need. Also, one of our friends, Bern, who does a lot of YouTube content, this has become, he's got all the gear too, but this has become one of his favorite pieces of gear. And he will either just hold it like this, or he'll have it on a selfie stick a little bit further extended. And the nice thing is it's very steady, so you can hand hold it without having to worry about shaky footage. There's a little bit of a learning curve, but it's been probably the least painful learning curve of a GoPro style camera. I've owned 3 or 4 other GoPros that have gotten used almost not at all because the learning curve, for whatever reason, at the time that I was playing with it, just was painful. So I just never used it. And this one, the learning curve was so easy. I need my gear to be easy and simple, or I will just get annoyed and I'll move on. So that's why I love this. The other one I'm actually using here, I'm gonna mess with my recording, is the Pocket 3. So the DJI Pocket 3. This is fun. You can actually see it's a full-blown gimbal, and it's got the screen built in here, so you can put it in selfie mode so you can see yourself talk. This one can be good for simple home tours and that sort of thing. Also some neighborhood style tours. And that, like the other DJI camera, will sync directly up to this without having to plug anything in. So as far as simpler cameras go that do a lot for you, those are the couple that I suggest. There's lots of other options, but I just think DJI is doing such a good job. What I will say is the DJI Pocket 3, the one that has the gimbal attached to it, has actually gone up in value, and it's hard to get your hands on. I've got a buddy who ordered one 2 weeks ago, and he's like, I don't think I'm getting it until May. So that's one piece of gear that I might go onto Facebook Marketplace to see if you can find. But for just the camera itself, it's $620. And for the creator combo, which gives you a little tripod, an extended battery, and 1 or 2 other things, it's about $800. So awesome piece of gear. If I had to go do it again personally, I'd probably just get the Action. But depending on your style and what you want, the Pocket is amazing. And I know some people who would just go that direction. So if you're thinking, well, I want to get something more than my iPhone, but I'm not sure which one, there are plenty of video tutorials. If you just type in DJI Action 5 versus Pocket 3, and you'll get plenty of, there's a dozen guys, well, more than that, but a dozen guys who do a really nice job. Just pick 2 or 3 of the videos that have hundreds of thousands of views, watch them, and they're not going to say this is good or bad. They're just going to say, based on what you're thinking about doing with this, it can be nice. One other playful part about this instead of your iPhone. One of my guys got this for creating content for his real estate business, for his YouTube channel and that. He started taking it on vacations, and he kept his iPhone in the pocket, and he became way less distracted. He was like, I was able to capture content of my family, and now I don't have to worry about looking at my phone and seeing the 10 notifications that came up in the last 20 minutes. Just leave it in the pocket, leave it on Do Not Disturb, and just capture. It's just going back to having a camera in your hand. So that's kind of an extra fun bonus if you do any sort of traveling or want to have any sort of playful fun. Also, they make mounts for cars. This one's really carried away. They make them much smaller, but this one, I could put my professional camera on this mount. I have used it for the smaller one. And then, but if you're trying to get some out and about or tours, there is a mount that goes on the bottom of this, and it stacks up, and basically that goes onto your window, and then this will film as you're driving, which is really great. And it has like vibration reduction in there, so the quality is not going to be overly shaky. So just a lot of cool that can happen. And I know some of my folks have editors who they're working with for their real estate content. Well, imagine if you're a bit like me and you just don't like editing, because I hate editing. I could call my editor and say, hey, we just took a family vacation. I captured a bunch of content. I just want it for me and my family. Would you match that up for me? The chances are, especially because they're probably getting paid, they're going to say yes. Might even be a fun little deviation from the plan. So, little side note, a little bit of fun there. Finally, as we talked about cameras, what I will say is there is more you can do with this, but there is also a much greater learning curve. I've got one of the guys who I've coached who had bought a smaller version of this, another Sony that was like a $1,200 camera, and then bought this actual camera before I owned it was like, dude, I'm getting jealous. I was like, what happened to the other one? Was it broken? Because I'd never seen a piece of content come from it. Funny thing is, now that he's got the $2,500 camera, and we're talking just for the camera, not for the lens, he still hasn't made any content. Part of it's because of the learning curve. Now, I've also had some friends who have said, but Jeff, I really want to do it as a hobbyist, or I want to level up my quality. Either one is fine. My encouragement is always get started on your iPhone or maybe a DJI, press record, get in the habit. So if you're not doing the work, do not go and buy one of these and say, once I have the camera, I will do the work. I promise you, if you do, you'll be the first one ever. Okay, start with the iPhone, get in the habit of creating the content. What can happen with something like this, especially having the bigger lens? Not only is there a learning curve about how to use the camera, but there is, and I'm going to show you one more slide here. There is a learning curve on what other gear you need. I've owned probably 20 or 30 different lenses, some of which I bought early knowing what I wanted, and I've had it forever since I bought it. Others I bought, tried it, didn't like it, bought another one, tried, didn't like it. So I'm not saying this to discourage you. And if you know somebody who's good at it, they'll help you put together a package. In the last year, I've helped almost a dozen of my coaching clients build a home studio that has an appearance of what I'm doing. So it can be a lot of fun once you kind of get past that initial learning curve. And there are some simple camera settings that we can kind of work through. But let me share the screen one more time, and then I'm going to show you an illustration of what happens here. So share. Shannon, how are we doing? Is this what you were hoping for today?
This is perfect. Yeah.
Cool. All right. I know we're really getting in the weeds. So this is taking its time. All right, good. So this is, if you were in photography 101, this would be a chart that would likely be on the wall. And if you look all the way over to the right-hand side, at the top, you have a person in view and the mountain completely blurred. And if you look all the way over to the left-hand side, you've got the person and the mountain in view. Those circles in the middle is something that we don't need to focus on right now, but I'll share with it what it is. But that's how big the aperture is. So all the way to the left, that word aperture, also known as f-stop. I'm getting nerdy now, I promise. I won't get lost here. But over on the left-hand side where it's f32, it's the smallest hole in one of the big lenses, okay? It is going to let the least amount of light in, and it will give you the longest depth of field. So you could be standing 1,000 meters in front of a mountain, and you're in focus and the mountain's in focus. All the way over to the other side, it's going to let the most amount of light in, and it's a very small number. That's 1.4. I know it says 1,4, but that's 1.4. It's probably a pretty expensive lens, and it's going to blur out everything else when you have it set that way. Would you guys like to see an example of this? So I am currently, do you see how I'm in focus and everything else behind me is blurred? Do you see how as I get further away, now almost everything else is starting to come into focus? My current lens is set to 1.6, and I can change this on this particular lens by, oh, there we go. Oh, it's on a setting that's, yeah, okay, good. So notice how we are now fully, everything is in focus. I'm now up to f16. Okay. So when people are like, I want that blurred background look, maybe you've seen like a Brad McCullum video, like he's got that super narrow depth of field. That narrow depth of field is what we're talking about here. And so now I'm down to 1.4, and that's why I'm able to put things like a camera in front of me and everything else goes blurry, including even my face. Then I move that back. This camera is really smart. This camera rig setup cost me, if I were to buy it, I buy a lot of used gear. If I were to buy that rig brand new, it'd be about $3,500 to $3,800 just for the camera and the lens. And that's like a lesser expensive, nice lens or nice camera, if that makes sense. So I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying there's a lot that goes into it. The one other thing that I will mention, I'm going to go back to the share one more time because there's a lot of other data on there. That is the most important, in my opinion, of why somebody might want to go for a camera like this. What I've got on the list is a less expensive version of what I've got, though. So the next one down, shutter speed right there in the middle, um, all the way to the right-hand side, that's half a second. So literally 1/2 of a second. It's slow. You can actually go slower on these cameras, but it's somebody running. You're going to get a total blur. All the way over on the left-hand side, that's 1/1000. You're going to stop like a raindrop, or you're going to stop a helicopter blade in midair. Like the helicopter will be flying and it will look like the blade is stopped. So you want to catch a dog jumping in the air, you're probably at 1/500. Getting nerdy, conversation for another day, matters almost non-existent for what almost all of us will ever do. Okay? You guys cool if I keep rolling? Down at the bottom, the ISO is something that used to be an actual film thing. The bigger the number, the less light you need. But if you look all the way on the right-hand side where that number is 2500 or 25,000, the less light that you have, the uglier the photo gets from like a quality standpoint. Now, the newer cameras in the last 3 or 4 years have gotten ridiculously good at more or less seeing in the dark. But again, that shouldn't matter because we already talked about lighting, and almost everything that we're going to do is going to be in a controlled setting. Making sense so far? All right, I'm going to move on from cameras. What I will say is there is some Sony cameras on this list. Again, if you're thinking, but Jeff, I really want to play in that space. The 3 cameras that I have on here are 4 cameras. There's 2 versions of 2 different kinds of cameras. You can throw that into YouTube. There's a ZV-1. There's a ZV-1-2. So like 1II. And one is just a newer version of the other one. You do not have to buy an external lens for that. That's going to be $750 or $900, depending on which generation you get if you buy new. So that's pretty cool for a studio setup. I've got a couple friends who have bought that, built their studio around that, and been very pleased. And it gives them a similar look to what I have without going and spending $3,000. And then I've had a couple friends who've said, but Jeff, I want the ability to control what lens I put on there. So for the body plus a kit lens, which comes on, it's a cheap Sony lens, which is not the long-term solution, but good to get you going. Those are 800 or 1100, depending on if you get the original or the new generation. And that's ZV E10 or ZV E10 II, which is second generation. Okay, I'm going to keep moving on. Mostly what we're going to talk about at this point in time is other accessories and gear and that sort of thing. And I've got some things kind of all around me, so I'm going to be reaching for them. When I say don't just go and buy something, and sometimes you got to tinker, and sometimes you got to like play around and buy something and figure out if you're going to use it or not. But I have these GoPro 7s. I literally have 3 of them. One is a friend's. He used it once and I ended up with it. I got a good deal on Facebook Marketplace, got 2 more, just a little GoPro. And then I got this cool gimbal and I've never used it. Like literally never used it. I tried it once or twice. It's too clunky. Cool thing is the tech has come along a long, long way. The quality's come along a long, long way. Then I've owned 4 different gimbals. I will say if you have, that's around here somewhere. Yep, there it is. If you've got the iPhone gimbal, I still personally like the Osmos. It's the DJI version. The 3rd generation gimbal, I just actually upgraded to the 6th generation. This is pretty cool because it has a selfie stick included. So if I wanted to get further away, oh boy, let me not break it. Shows you how much I use it, right? So oh yeah. So you have the ability to get it a little further away if you want to have that. This is about $120, I think, maybe 110. And occasionally it goes on sale, but the sale only saves you $10 or $15. But that, if you're mostly using iPhone stuff, can be really good. But I will also say, A lot of my friends who are making really good content on Instagram now with their iPhones are quite literally hand holding. We got friends in our coaching group that are making like crazy. When I say viral, I'm talking like hundreds of thousands, if not millions of views, and they're hand holding their iPhone because they've just gotten good at it. I'm not saying don't get the gimbal. I'm just saying don't not trying it without the gimbal. One of the gimbals, the only gimbal that I bought and I haven't really used, I was like, oh, a small gimbal would be cool. Again, we mess around a little bit. This is the second generation of what I use as a workhorse if I'm doing professional film work uh, in a home. I don't even have this on the list because the learning curve for this is like, I want to go and film my own homes. I've got one coaching client, two. I've got two coaching clients who are fully committed to like really doing their own work. Okay. They went and bought one and they spent dozens and dozens of hours figuring out how to even get the camera on here, how to set it. I personally think for most agents, this is a complete waste of time. And quite frankly, I'm not doing it a ton right now, and it annoys me almost every time I use it. Cool what you get from it, but I'd say if you're to this point, you're probably hiring a pro. Shannon, what do you think? Do you agree with me on that?
I agree. I like simplicity and I always struggle with gimbals.
Yeah.
So a lot of my short stuff I will use my iPhone. We got a question, it looks like from
Yeah.
Jennifer.
What's up, Jennifer?
Hey, I really love you going in the weeds more than you know. Um, Question for you. So I've got my handy dandy iPhone. I've got that new generation of the DJI
Yep.
gimbal that has some cool stuff built in. I just got the Hollyland mini mics.
Okay. Cool.
Similar, they just don't have that button kind of idea that the DJI does, and I just had to kind of make a decision. So I went with the Hollyland. I really like them.
Good.
So that's to me the setup, the simplification of setup. And so what I'm wondering, because I've spent thousands on thousands on different gear, and I bought the Sony camera and sold it, and I've got the zoom, and I've got I've got all the stuff.
Yep.
And so now I'm just like, F it, like just simplification. So but because I like the gear, you had that DJI, you had the mini, and then you had that cool looking camera that you said the guy took on vacation. So
Yeah.
I'm kind of wondering, because I'm always like, oh, what should I have, so to speak, to be efficient? What are your thoughts? Like, why as an agent shooting, would I take that other cool phone or camera versus using my iPhone? Like, what are the advantages?
Yeah.
And I ask that because now there's apps that allow you to do front and back camera. So I'm like, my head's all over, and I always like having the coolest stuff. And I've wasted thousands, even
No,
though I
yeah.
use them. So
This is
now, today, what would you say? Like,
a
why
great,
use that phone?
great
Or
question.
why use that camera?
Yeah, there's a few reasons. One in particular is form factor. Like, how discreet are you? Like, this is a very, very like different, right? So form factor is one. Two, it's rugged. Like I can literally I'm not going to, but I could drop this and not actually worry about it being an issue. I don't, where's the cage? Okay.
While you're looking for that, it sounds like it's got a killer stabilizer built into it, like like,
Yeah,
other
it does.
things.
So the, we've actually been using the gear a lot recently, which is nice. And both my kids are into videography. So I don't know where the base plate is, but there's a base plate that attaches to this that I need to buy probably two more of so that I'll be able to have mounted in my car. And I can literally, once I get this set, I can just pop it on. And now it's mounted exactly how I want it if I want to do some talking in the car style content. And then if I want to take it off, I can throw it on. One of my favorite pieces of gear is a monopod with a tripod. This one, I don't even know if you can get any more. So I found one that I thought looked good. It's about, I can't remember, a monopod. It's like $30. And so this sits nicely and you can literally just stick, like if you have the mount, you can just pop this right on top and then you can have this behind you and you can just set it there and you can be talking and it's super easy and super convenient. So if you're in the midst of doing content, you're out and about and you just want something quick and you've got the mic already sunk up to it. Again, because the mini mic syncs directly to this.
That was my next question. You
Yeah.
already answered. Yeah.
And that, and Bern, I referenced earlier, he's the one who actually turned me on to this camera. And he's like, Jeff, I had the 4, I just got the 5. I love it. I'll never go anywhere without it. But so like, I do think a piece of gear worth having is a monopod, or like my camera is currently attached to my, my desk. So I've got a desk mount camera stand, which is $25. It like has a clamp, you screw it to the bottom. But going back to what you said, it's a convenience factor for me.
Yeah.
I don't know if those will sync directly to this, which is why I personally spent a little bit more money on the DJI. Yep.
Yeah.
So
I looked at them both while I was there.
yeah.
I mean, and it's still and it comes with the cool case, just like, yeah,
Yep.
I mean, they're
Yep.
both.
And I would imagine you can probably plug it in because it's got the USB-C.
Yeah.
Again, I just don't know how that would work. So you'd have to play with it, but also then you got something sticking out the side of this, and you know, do you want to go buy more mics? Probably not, but maybe. But I will also
So are you
say
saying the DJI doesn't have the input?
it's got a USB-C on the side, but it's not the
Yeah.
same as like an iPhone. It's because
Got
it's a
it.
waterproof camera, it's buried inside and you got to open it up. So that would be something you'd want to consider. But if you're thinking about getting this, you can try it. You could also record audio to your phone from your Hollywood mic, and then you could just snap them together in post-production. But that is one more layer of something you'd have to do.
Yeah, I'm trying to think super simple, like,
that-
and then
It's why I got this with the DJI. That's why I bought the second generation. Then when they got the smaller one, I was like, I'm getting the smaller one with the noise cancellation, and I love it.
thank you.
You're welcome. The one other thing we talked about monopods. This has been one of my favorite $15 tools I ever bought. It is a magnet, and most of us have an iPhone that is a MagSafe. And so I can just, let me get it right. I'm ready to go. And this is sitting on my mini tripod that sits on my desk, and I can just press record, or if I want to use the nicer camera on the back, that's one little hack that I encourage folks to do. If you're really creating your own content, don't do it in selfie mode this way. Sometimes there's a time and place for that, but if you want to have higher quality looking stuff, have it coming out of the back camera. But I would put this on the tripod mount, and I have a switch pod tripod, and this is pretty cool. It goes into basically a selfie stick. So you can really get further away, and this attachment goes on there so I can have my phone out away from us. So SwitchPod is the most expensive $100 little mini thing, but I beat the trash out of this, and I've never once thought I wish I didn't spend $100. And then the little like circle head unit, that's not the right word for it, but the ball joint, which allows you to get all the angles, is an additional $20 or $30. So it's like $130. But I like that better than the gimbal, to be honest. Again, because you got good stabilization. So that's just a really helpful piece as well. So I think that's about all the nerdy stuff. And I think we're getting close on time. We didn't talk a lot about settings, but so much of the gear is so smart these days. If there was one thing that I would talk about, would be shutter speed. I'm sorry, like film speed, frames per second. If you're filming yourself or a human, frames per second, in most instances, if you're not going to speed it up or slow it down, should be and will be 24 or 30 frames per second. I will almost always do 24 frames per second because it's just an old industry standard. 30 is fine too. If you're trying to do a speed ramp or like speed up videos or slow-mo, I'd go to 60 frames per second if it's like walking through a home on an iPhone or one of these smaller cameras that we just discussed. And all of them have the ability to change these settings. if you put a human on 60, it can look a little funny, but I know some people who do that all the time and they're happy with their content. So I don't want to get you guys stuck on that. But I would say that those are the kind of the one setting that matters more than almost anything else.
Do you have any suggestions, Jeff, for like an iPhone? Like, let's say I'm filming something at a desk here, as far as like iPhone camera setting.
Yeah, there are some apps that I personally don't have a lot of experience with, just because I've gotten to the point where I have nerded out with some of this other gear and spent the money and the time. But if I only had an iPhone and I knew that I was going to go that route, there are two apps that I would do some exploration on. One is the Blackmagic app. Blackmagic is a camera company that puts out really high quality cameras. They came out with an iPhone app that people have raved about, because you can set everything that we talked about. You can set your what is a digital version of your aperture and your shutter speed and all those, as if you had like a high-end professional camera. They give you all the settings in the app, so you can raise and lower your light, that sort of thing. The other one, Blackmagic, I think that's the go-to at this point in time. So I'd probably just go there. There was one other one, and now I'm drawing a blank, but Blackmagic has become kind of the standard for that.
Cool. Samuel's asking, which camera would you recommend attaching to a helmet? Like
Almost without fail, I would attach this the DJI Action 5. In fact, I'm not actively selling. I'm almost solely coaching at this point in time. But if I were to go back into selling, we've got an amazing trail system outside of Philly here, and I enjoy cycling it. I enjoy running it. I would probably mount this either onto a helmet or onto the front of my bike. And I would probably do a series of YouTube videos around the Schuylkill River Trail and the Philly Trail system, because it's so good. And I love selling homes to people who are into similar things that I'm into. So that's Spartans, runners, cyclists, CrossFitters. They don't like running, but they probably appreciate the trails. And I'd probably do the same thing on the kayak, on the waterways, because there's a lot of kayaking area.
Go birds.
Do we have other questions?
I'm not seeing any right now. If you have that gear list or your Amazon storefront, that would be super helpful if you could link that. Jennifer has another question.
Yeah.
Because I've got you here. This is exciting. First of all, I was born in Philly, lots of family, so
Nice.
nice to know. The setup now that you're using to edit, and I might have missed this at the beginning. I'm not like, where's the simplicity in editing? Because so many people in the circles that Shannon and I run in are cut.
Yep.
For simplicity, if you were starting over today, where would you go with editing?
I'll tell you what I've always done. I've never edited.
Thank you for saying.
I hate editing. I think it's the biggest waste of time for almost all agents. And I say almost all. I can live with the argument of, I want to know what it feels like before I hire it off my plate. In a lot of instances, that can be a very healthy thing, because there tends to be a ridiculous divide in communication from agents and their editors. We have something in our head. We're trying to get our editor to do something. And when I was running the media company, even then I wasn't editing my own stuff. I've had 4 different editors who I've worked with. I'm currently working with 2 who are not the 4 that I worked with before, just because they're at various different stages in their life. Funny thing, I was talking to a guy who I was using 8 years ago when I started on film this morning, which was a lot of fun. But there are so many people out there who are very good at that, and that's what they do, and that's what they want to do. And for a reasonable rate, we can buy a lot of our time back so that we're not having to deal with the learning curve. If you must edit, CapCut is one that's pretty good. Final Cut and Premiere Pro are kind of the 2 industry standards if you're really going to get in the weeds with it. But even the guys who I know who are editing, in fact, a good buddy of mine, a very good friend of mine who's also a coach, was not putting out enough content based on what he said he wanted to do. and I don't coach him, but we were having a conversation. I was like, dude, you need to hire an editor. And his response was, but I love editing. It's his favorite part of like almost anything he does. I was like, that's fine. Pick one piece of content per week that you edit as a hobby and take everything else off your plate. And it's been really fun to watch what happened. He decided he's going to do one piece of content with his family every week just for the memory's sake. He was going to own that edit, and everything for real estate was going to come off his plate. And he has quadrupled the amount of content, maybe even more. He went from like one or two pieces of content a week to like 10, 15, 20 pieces of content a week because he found the right editing team.
Well, that just opens the door to that discussion because that's been a cluster in my world.
Yeah, get it off your plate. I mean, you got
Finding
to
the
obviously,
editing team.
yeah, you got to afford it. And I've got a couple who I'd be more than happy to introduce you to. So if you want to send me a DM, I'd be more than happy. In fact, Shannon and I are using the same guy at this point in time, and both very pleased. The other one is my son, and he's a rock star. But Splice, DaVinci, yeah, there's some other stuff in there too. Yeah, video launch from Connor.
Connor Mermain. He does a lot of work with agents at Real. And basically, I was using a VA formerly with a company called Assistantly, and for like the same cost, I'm getting a whole lot better with Connor. I can communicate a lot better with his team. They kind of, there's a little bit of a learning curve. So I kind of went through a couple of weeks where I didn't have content coming out because it was like the back and forth, my style. But now that we got the style down, like he's helping me a lot. And so my goal is to shoot 2 YouTube videos a week and just give it to him. He's helping me chop it up and turn it into usable Instagram pieces, YouTube shorts, that kind of thing. And that's very, very helpful. And so then it kind of takes the pressure off. The only thing I edit is sometimes like funny Instagram reels because it's just in my brain and I'm trying to like, lip sync, whatever. It's short, it's easy, and I can whip that together pretty quickly instead of me trying to explain that. But otherwise, like he takes everything else off. And that's helped me cut down on even what I have to produce as like new content on Instagram.
Yeah. Very, very important note. Shannon just said, occasionally I'll do it myself. There are times where she just thinks, okay, how long would it take me to explain this to them? How long would it take me to do it? Okay, it's going to take me 15 minutes. It would take me like an hour to try to go back and forth with the editor, own that one. But she's probably down to like 1 in 10 or 1 in 20 pieces of content that she's owning the edit for. And she used to do all of it herself. So
yeah. For Instagram, I've never done
for
YouTube.
Instagram. Yeah.
I've never done it because I'm like, I just don't have the bandwidth to edit like a 3, 4, 10-minute video. Some of my videos are long. Like there's no way I even want to touch that. For the Instagram stuff, like I said, if it's short, simple, trendy, I'm like, okay, I'm just going to do this little 10-second video. It makes sense for me to do it. But everything else, I just am like, pass it off my plate. And having a videographer team the editing team that can take a long YouTube content and like make it look good, where it's like, here's a highlight thing that you could use, a teaser, put it on Instagram, put it on YouTube shorts, whatever. Like that's huge because that was like another piece my other guy wasn't really doing for me very well. And that's been tremendous, just having a different person.
I got to figure out how to get this out of. So funny. I'm nerdy and techie with some stuff and not so much with the other, but I'm going to get this over to you, Shannon, and I want you to experiment and make sure that this works.
Yeah. And then last, Misha says you're avoiding his kayak question.
Sorry. I missed your kayak question, but Misha, we should do it again. Raise your hand and talk to me, dude. Or just talk to me. Or stay hidden.
I was just messing with you, my friend.
Misha lost a really expensive Insta360 camera that Nate DePitetto dropped in the Pacific Ocean last year. It was great. Did he ever replace that?
No, it was Greg. You and Greg had the camera.
It wasn't me. It was Greg.
Yeah.
That was Greg. That's right. Yeah, that was going to be some good footage. We almost got eaten by sharks. The swells were like 20 feet high. And I'm not exaggerating about 15 feet high.
They capsized like 250 yards out from the shore.
Terrifying. And it took Misha and Nate about an hour to get out past the break. It was cool. Yeah, he's not here, so I can't really talk about him, but we've got another friend who lost one of my cameras. I'm still waiting on a replacement. Um,
All right, I got your gear list in there as a PDF file. So if y'all can open your chat, see if you can download that. I will also upload it to the recording within WorkVivo. I will send out a like a email follow-up from this with the link to the recording, and I will send this as well.
if we're not friends yet, guys, on like the social platforms, Instagram is my favorite place to hang out. I will always reply to your DMs. Just give me a day or two because sometimes life gets crazy, but I will always reply. If you ever have like specific questions, I'm happy to answer them. So Jeff Bannan, I normally, if you get to Jeff B, I'll probably come up just above Bezos. Kind of cool, little party trick. Yeah. Anything else before we wrap for the day? I know we're kind of bumping up against the hour.
I think that's it. This was super helpful. Thank you so much for taking your time out. Like I said, he's a super busy person coaching so many different people and creating videos and content and still selling some homes here and there. So like taking up an hour of your time is super valuable, and we're grateful for that.
Glad to be here. The most important thing is, and the thing that makes me spending that hour worth it is if y'all go create something. So if we had this conversation and it ends here, it was a waste of everybody's time. But if we had this conversation, y'all go create something, then I'm happy as pie. So,
All right. See you guys next month. I will have Marie Boatsman, who's
oh,
amazing,
that's gonna be a good one.
talking about how to create tons of content for one listing, just varieties of cool listing videos, and also branding yourself more in that luxury space. So that will be second Tuesday in May. So just stay tuned for that one.
Guys, that'll be a good one. Don't miss it.
All right. See you guys.
See you guys.
Thanks, Shannon. Thanks, Jeff.